Velsara stepped off the transport shuttle and felt the recycled air of Convergence Point fill her lungs. The space station was massive, a spinning wheel of metal and glass where dozens of species came together to trade, negotiate, and occasionally threaten each other. She had visited many such places in her career as a combat analyst for the Sindari Dominion, but this one held special importance. War was coming with the Rektai mercenary clans, and the Dominion needed to know who might stand with them and who might stand against them. Her silver-blue skin caught the artificial light as she walked through the crowded corridors. Other species moved aside for her without being asked. The Sindari were known throughout the galaxy as warriors, and Velsara carried herself with the confidence of someone who had earned her rank through blood and skill. Her luminescent eyes scanned every face, every weapon, every potential threat. It was habit. It was training. It was who she was. Commander Rixal walked beside her, his armor gleaming with the marks of 100 victories. He was her superior, a veteran of 3 major wars, and he had little patience for this diplomatic mission. "Waste of time," he muttered. "We should be preparing for battle, not attending parties with lesser species." "Knowledge is preparation," Velsara replied calmly. "If we understand how others fight, we can predict how they will act when war comes." Rixal made a dismissive sound but said nothing more. He respected her skills even if he disagreed with her methods. Velsara had a gift for seeing patterns that others missed, for understanding the soul of a warrior by watching them move. It was why she had risen so high despite her youth. The Sindari delegation settled into their assigned quarters, and Velsara immediately began her work. She accessed the station's public databases, pulling information on every species currently docked at Convergence Point. Most were familiar. The Kethrani with their poison claws, the Moraval with their sonic weapons, the Drethkai with their hive mind tactics. All dangerous in their own ways, all predictable. Then she found the entry for humans. She read it twice, certain she had misunderstood. Humans were a young species, barely a century into their space exploration. They had no natural weapons, no armored skin, no special abilities. Their lives were short, their bodies fragile, their technology unremarkable. By every measure, they should have been prey, not predators. Yet they had carved out a significant territory in the galaxy and maintained it against species far older and more powerful. Curious, Velsara thought. She marked them for observation. The opportunity came the next day. A human diplomatic vessel called the Horizon's Edge had docked at the station, and Velsara made it her business to watch their delegation arrive. She expected nothing interesting. She was wrong. The humans moved through the station with an ease that surprised her. They smiled at strangers. They made small talk with species that should have frightened them. Their captain, a woman named Yoon Hai-jin, walked at the front of the group with the confidence of someone who feared nothing. It was either incredible bravery or incredible stupidity. Velsara could not decide which, but it was another human who caught her true attention. He was male, average height for his species, with black hair and calm eyes. He wore simple clothes, not armor, and carried no visible weapons. Yet something about the way he moved made Velsara's instincts wake up. He walked like a predator pretending to be prey. Every step was precise. Every motion was controlled. She had seen warriors from a dozen species, and she recognized the signs. This one is dangerous, she realized. But how? He has nothing. She followed him at a distance, using the crowds as cover. He led a group of younger humans to an observation deck that the delegation had claimed for their use. What happened next made no sense to her at all. He began to teach them how to fight, but there were no weapons, no armor, no technology of any kind. The humans faced each other with empty hands and struck at each other with their fists and feet. They grappled and threw each other to the ground. They practiced blocks and dodges against attacks that would have been deadly if they connected. And through it all, the teacher moved among them, correcting their forms, demonstrating techniques, showing them how to use their own bodies as weapons. Velsara watched for an hour, her confusion growing with every minute. She recorded everything on her personal device, but she could not understand what she was seeing. Fighting without weapons was not fighting. It was suicide. Every species in the galaxy knew this. You brought the best weapons you could carry into battle, or you died. It was simple. It was obvious. It was truth. So why were these humans training as if their bare hands could protect them? She moved closer, trying to get a better angle for her recordings. The teacher was demonstrating a technique where he redirected an attacker's punch and used the motion to throw them over his hip. It was smooth and efficient, using the attacker's own force against them. Velsara had to admit it was elegant, even if it was ultimately useless against an armed opponent. Then the teacher looked up and saw her. Their eyes met across the training space. Velsara froze, caught in her observation like a juvenile who had not yet learned to be subtle. She expected anger or suspicion. Instead, the human simply smiled and performed a strange motion. He bent at the waist, lowering his head in her direction before straightening again. She did not know what the gesture meant, but she filed it away for later analysis. The human returned to his lesson as if nothing had happened. Velsara remained where she was, unable to look away. There was something about him that defied her understanding, something that did not fit the categories she used to classify warriors. He was clearly skilled in his strange art. His students respected him. His movements were those of a master, but a master of what? Punching, kicking, throwing people to the ground? She recorded the name on his uniform before she left. Kang Do-hyun. She would need to learn more about this human and his primitive fighting rituals, not because she thought they had any real value, but because he represented a mystery, and Velsara had never been able to ignore a mystery. That night in her quarters, she reviewed the recordings again and again. She watched Do-hyun move, watched him teach, watched him demonstrate techniques that should have been worthless but somehow were not. And she found herself asking a question that had never occurred to her before. What if she was wrong about weapons? What if there was another way to fight? It was a dangerous thought. She pushed it aside and went to sleep. But her dreams were filled with images of the human with the calm eyes, moving like water, striking like lightning, dangerous beyond all reason. She would need to observe him more closely. For professional purposes, of course, nothing more. The diplomatic reception was held in the Grand Hall of Convergence Point, a massive chamber with transparent walls that showed the stars in every direction. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species mingled together, drinking strange liquids and making careful conversation. Alliances were formed in places like this. Wars were prevented. Sometimes wars were started. It all depended on who said what to whom. Velsara wore her formal armor, polished to a mirror shine, with the marks of her rank displayed prominently on her shoulders. She moved through the crowd with purpose, acknowledging greetings from other Sindari and ignoring the curious looks from lesser species. Her goal for the evening was simple. She would meet the human called Kang Do-hyun and learn the truth about his strange fighting methods. She found him near the observation windows, standing with the human captain and a tall man who wore the uniform of their security division. Do-hyun was dressed in simple formal clothes, dark fabric with clean lines, no decorations or medals. He looked almost ordinary compared to the warriors around him. Almost. Velsara approached without hesitation. "Captain Yoon," she said, using the formal greeting protocols she had studied. "I am Velsara of the Sindari Dominion. I request introduction to your crew member." Captain Yoon studied her with intelligent eyes. "Of course." This is Kang Do-hyun, our martial arts instructor, and Park Tae-sung, our security chief. Martial arts, Velsara repeated. This is the name for your unarmed fighting methods? Do-hyun turned to face her fully, and she saw recognition in his eyes. He remembered her from the observation deck. Yes. You were watching our training session yesterday. There was no point in denying it. I was. Your methods are unusual. I wish to understand them better. What would you like to know? Velsara considered her words carefully. Among the Sindari, fighting without weapons is not considered fighting at all. It is what children do before they are old enough to carry blades. Your training appears serious, disciplined, professional, yet you teach your people to strike with their hands and feet like primitives. I do not understand the purpose. She expected offense. Instead, Do-hyun smiled. It was a patient smile, the kind a teacher might give to a student asking a simple question. Martial arts is more than fighting, he said. It is philosophy, discipline, self-mastery. The techniques are important, but they are not the point. Then what is the point? To understand yourself, to control yourself, to know that your body can be a weapon, yes, but also to know when not to use it. He paused, meeting her eyes. The greatest warriors are not the ones who win every fight. They are the ones who know which fights matter. Velsara processed this. It was a strange way of thinking, almost backwards from everything she had been taught. Sindari warriors were trained to win every fight, to never show weakness, to dominate all opponents. The idea of choosing not to fight was foreign to her. Before she could respond, a loud voice interrupted them. So this is the famous human fighting style I have heard about. Commander Rixall approached with several other Sindari warriors behind him. His tone made it clear that he had been drinking and that he was looking for entertainment at someone else's expense. Velsara felt her jaw tighten with frustration. Commander, she said carefully, we were having a private conversation. Nonsense. This is a diplomatic event. Everything is public. Rixall looked at Do-hyun with obvious contempt. I am told that humans fight with their bare hands like animals. Is this true? Do-hyun's expression did not change. Martial arts has been part of human culture for thousands of years. It is a respected tradition. Tradition. Rixall laughed. I have a tradition, too. It involves real weapons and real armor. Tell me, human, would you like to test your tradition against mine? The station has combat arenas. We could settle the question of which method is superior. The crowd around them grew quiet. Other beings were watching now, sensing the tension. Velsara saw Captain Yoon's hand move slightly toward her communication device, ready to call for backup if needed. Do-hyun simply shook his head. I appreciate the offer, Commander, but I must decline. I do not fight for entertainment or to prove a point. You decline? Rixall's voice rose with disbelief. Are all humans cowards, or just you? Park Tae-sung stepped forward, anger visible on his face, but Do-hyun raised a hand to stop him. I am not a coward, Commander. I simply choose my battles carefully. There is nothing to be gained from fighting you in an arena. It would prove nothing except that one of us is better at violence than the other. It would prove that your primitive methods are worthless, perhaps. Or perhaps it would prove that weapons and armor are not the only measures of a warrior. Do-hyun's voice remained calm, almost gentle. I have no desire to embarrass you or your people. You are proud warriors with a long history. I respect that, but I will not fight simply because I am challenged. Rixall stared at him for a long moment, clearly unsure how to respond. In Sindari culture, refusing a challenge was shameful. But the human had done it without shame, without fear, with something that looked almost like pity. It was confusing. It was infuriating. Coward, Rixall finally said, and turned away. The other Sindari followed him, laughing and making mocking comments about soft humans with soft hands. When they were gone, Captain Yoon let out a breath. "Thank you for keeping that from escalating." Do-hyun shrugged. "Fighting him would not have helped anyone. We are here for diplomacy, not blood sport." Velsara had remained silent through the entire exchange, watching Do-hyun carefully. She had seen warriors face challenges before. Some accepted with eagerness, some accepted with reluctance, some refused out of fear, their bodies betraying them with trembling hands and rapid breathing. But Do-hyun showed none of these signs. He had refused not because he was afraid, but because he genuinely did not see the point. It was the strangest thing she had ever witnessed. "Your commander called you a coward," she said quietly. "This does not bother you?" Do-hyun looked at her. "Should it? He does not know me. His opinion is based on ignorance. Why would I let ignorance control my actions?" "But, Your Honor—" "My honor is not determined by other people. It is determined by my own choices, my own actions, my own integrity. I know who I am. That is enough." Velsara had no response to this. In her entire life, she had never heard anyone speak this way. Honor among the Sindari was earned through combat, through victory, through the respect of others. The idea that honor could be internal, personal, independent of outside judgment, it was revolutionary. That night, she accessed the human cultural databases with new urgency. She read about martial arts masters who had defeated armed opponents with nothing but their bodies. She read about warriors who had refused challenges and been honored for their wisdom. She read about philosophies that valued peace over war, control over chaos, mind over matter. Her worldview had been built on solid foundations, certainties that had guided her entire life. Now those foundations were cracking. She was not sure how she felt about that, but she knew she needed to learn more. 3 days after the diplomatic reception, everything changed. The trouble began with the Recti. They were a mercenary species, reptilian and cold-blooded in both body and spirit. They had arrived at Convergence Point to negotiate a contract with the Sindari Dominion, but the talks had gone badly. The Recti wanted more money. The Sindari refused to pay it. Words were exchanged. Threats were made. Now both groups watched each other with hostile eyes, and the entire station felt the tension. Velsara continued her observations of the humans despite the dangerous atmosphere. She watched Do-hyun train with his students. She recorded his techniques and his teachings. She studied the way he moved, the way he breathed, the way he seemed to find peace in motion. It was becoming more than professional interest, though she refused to admit this to herself. The humans, for their part, tried to stay neutral. Captain Yoon kept her people away from both the Sindari and Recti sectors of the station. She understood that small species survived by avoiding the conflicts of large ones. It was wisdom born of experience, but wisdom could not account for accidents. Na Yoon-bi was the youngest member of the Horizon's Edge crew, a medic barely 24 years old. She had kind eyes and a gentle smile, and she had joined the diplomatic mission because she believed in helping people. On the 4th day of the Recti standoff, she went looking for medical supplies that had been delayed in shipping. The supplies had been stored in a section of the station that was now controlled by the Recti. Yoon-bi did not know this. The station's internal maps had not been updated to show the informal territorial divisions that had emerged since the negotiations failed. She walked into Recti space with her medical bag over her shoulder and a smile on her face, expecting nothing more dangerous than some paperwork. She was seized within minutes. The 3 Recti soldiers who found her recognized an opportunity when they saw one. A human hostage could be valuable. It could pressure the Sindari to resume negotiations. It could provide leverage in a dozen different ways. They dragged her into a storage room and sent word to their commanders. The alarm reached the horizon's edge 20 minutes later. Do-hyun was in the middle of a training session when Captain Yoon's voice came over the communication system. "Kang Do-hyun, report to the bridge immediately." He knew from her tone that something was wrong. He dismissed his students and moved through the ship with quick, purposeful steps. When he reached the bridge, he found Captain Yoon surrounded by concerned officers and Park Tae-sung already armed for combat. "Yoon-bi has been taken by the Vrektai," the captain said without preamble. "3 soldiers, storage section 14B. They're claiming she was a spy." "She was looking for medical supplies," Tae-sung said, his voice tight with anger. "She's not a spy. She's a medic. The Rektai don't care about truth. They care about leverage." Captain Yoon looked exhausted. "Station security says they can't interfere in internal political matters. The Sindari say it's not their concern. We're on our own." Do-hyun felt something cold settle in his chest. He knew Eun-bi. He had trained her in basic self-defense just last month. She was brave and kind and completely unprepared for this situation. "How long do we have?" "Unknown. The Rektai haven't made specific demands yet. They're probably waiting to see how we react." "Then we need to react quickly." Do-hyun turned toward the door. Tae-sung grabbed his arm. "Wait, we need to plan this properly. I can assemble an armed team in 30 minutes. We'll go in with full gear, full protocol." 30 minutes is too long. Do-hyun gently removed his friend's hand. "The Rektai are unstable right now. Their negotiations failed. They feel humiliated. If we give them time to think, they might decide that a dead hostage sends a stronger message than a living one. Then let me come with you. If you come armed, they will see a threat. They will respond with violence. Yoon-bi will be caught in the middle." Do-hyun shook his head. "I need to do this alone, and I need to do it now." Captain Yoon started to object, but something in Do-hyun's eyes stopped her. She had seen that look before, in the eyes of her first commanding officer, a woman who had walked into impossible situations and walked out again through pure force of will. It was the look of someone who had already accepted the consequences of their actions. "Go," she said quietly, "but come back, both of you." Do-hyun left the ship without weapons, without armor, without backup. He moved through the station corridors with the same calm purpose he showed in training, but inside he was calculating. 3 opponents, armed, probably armored, 1 hostage, confined space, limited options for retreat. The numbers were bad, but he had faced bad numbers before. He did not notice the silver-blue figure following him through the crowds. Velsara had been monitoring the human communications as part of her observation duties. When she heard about the kidnapping, she had acted without thinking, following Do-hyun from the moment he left his ship. She told herself it was professional curiosity. She wanted to see how humans handled a crisis. It had nothing to do with concern for his safety. She watched him approach the entrance to the Rektai sector. 2 guards stood there, armed with plasma rifles, their reptilian faces twisted with suspicion. "I need to enter," Do-hyun said calmly. "You have one of my people." "No one enters without authorization." The first guard raised his weapon slightly. "Then get authorization. I will wait." The guards exchanged looks. They had expected threats, aggression, some kind of dramatic confrontation. The human's calm patience unsettled them. One of them spoke into a communication device, while the other kept his weapon trained on Do-hyun. A minute later, the guard nodded. "You can enter. But if you try anything, we will kill you and your little medic both." "I understand." Do-hyun walked past them without hesitation. Velsara found another way in, using maintenance corridors that she had memorized during her first day on the station. She emerged in a hidden position overlooking the storage room where Yoon-bi was being held. What she saw made her heart beat faster. 3 recti soldiers stood around the young human woman, who was tied to a chair with her hands behind her back. She had been crying, but her eyes were dry now, filled with a mixture of fear and defiance. The soldiers were laughing about something, their weapons held carelessly, confident in their control of the situation. Then Do-hyun walked through the door. "Release her," he said simply. The soldiers turned to face him. The largest one, clearly the leader, smiled with too many teeth. "The human comes to negotiate. Good. What do you offer?" "Nothing. I am not here to negotiate. I am here to take her home." "And how will you do that? You have no weapons. You have no friends. You are one soft creature against 3 warriors." Do-hyun did not respond with words. Instead, his posture shifted. His weight settled. His hands came up slightly. It was a small change, barely noticeable, but Velsara saw it clearly from her hidden position. He was preparing to fight. She activated her recording device, her heart pounding in her chest. Every instinct told her she was about to witness something important, something that would change everything she believed about humans, about weapons, about what it meant to be a warrior. "That warrior should be mine," she whispered to herself, not even aware she was speaking. Below her, Do-hyun waited for the first move. The leader of the recti soldiers drew his blade and laughed. It was a cruel sound, full of confidence and contempt. "You humans are even more foolish than I thought. Coming here alone without weapons, you are not brave. You are suicidal." Do-hyun said nothing. His eyes moved between the 3 soldiers, calculating distances, measuring threats. The leader with his blade, the second soldier with a plasma pistol on his hip, the third standing close to Eunbi, one clawed hand resting on her shoulder. "Kill him," the leader said casually. "Make it slow." The second soldier drew his pistol and fired. But Do-hyun was no longer where he had been standing. He moved the instant the soldier's hand touched the weapon, closing the distance between them faster than seemed possible. The plasma bolt burned through empty air as Do-hyun grabbed the soldier's wrist and twisted sharply. The pistol clattered to the floor. A half-second later, the soldier followed it, thrown over Do-hyun's hip with a technique that used the reptile's own momentum against him. He hit the ground hard and did not get up. Velsara watched from above, her recorder forgotten in her hand. She had studied combat her entire life. She had seen warriors from every species demonstrate their skills. But she had never seen anything like this. He was not stronger than them. He was not faster. But he moved like water flowing around rocks, always in the right place at the right time, always using his opponent's force against them instead of fighting it directly. The leader roared and charged with his blade raised high. It was a powerful strike, meant to split Do-hyun from shoulder to hip. Against an armored opponent, it would have been devastating. Against this unarmed human, it should have been fatal. Do-hyun stepped inside the arc of the blade, so close that the weapon could not touch him. His hand shot out and struck the leader's elbow. The joint bent the wrong way with a terrible cracking sound. The blade fell from nerveless fingers. Before the leader could even scream, Do-hyun's palm drove upward into his chin, snapping his head back and sending him crashing to the floor, unconscious. 2 down in less than 10 seconds. The third soldier had watched his companions fall with growing horror. Now he pulled Eunbi from her chair and held a knife to her throat, using her body as a shield. "Stay back! I will kill her!" Do-hyun stopped moving. His hands dropped to his sides. His breathing was calm and even, as if he had not just disabled 2 armed soldiers with his bare hands. "You are afraid," he said quietly. "I understand, but killing her will not help you. If she dies, you have nothing to bargain with. You will die here, alone, far from your home. Is that what you want?" "Shut up!" The soldier's hand was shaking, making the knife tremble against Eunbi's neck. "You are the one who should be afraid. I have a hostage. I have the power here." "You have fear. Fear is not power. Do-hyun's voice was almost gentle. Let her go. Walk away. This does not have to end in more violence. For a moment, Velzara thought the soldier might actually listen. She could see the conflict in his reptilian eyes, the calculation of odds, the recognition that this human was far more dangerous than he appeared. Then the soldier's grip tightened, and she knew he had chosen wrong. Do-hyun reached into his pocket and pulled out something small and metallic. A coin. He held it up so the soldier could see it clearly. Do you know what this is? It is money. Worthless, really. Just a piece of metal that humans use for trade. What are you doing? The soldier was confused now, his attention split between Do-hyun and the strange object in his hand. I am giving you something to look at. Do-hyun met Eunbi's eyes. Close your eyes, he told her softly. Trust me. She closed her eyes. Do-hyun threw the coin. It was not a hard throw or a fast one. The coin simply tumbled through the air toward the soldier's face, catching the light as it spun. It was harmless. It was distracting. The soldier's eyes followed it automatically, just for a moment, just long enough. Do-hyun moved. He covered the distance between them in 2 steps. His hand caught the soldier's knife arm and pulled it away from Eunbi's throat. At the same time, his other arm wrapped around the young medic and pulled her free, spinning her out of danger. The soldier tried to strike, but Do-hyun was already behind him, one arm locked around his neck in a hold that cut off blood to the brain. 8 seconds later, the third soldier was unconscious on the floor with his companions. Do-hyun released him gently, lowering him to the ground without additional harm. Then he turned to Eunbi, who was staring at him with wide eyes and tears streaming down her face. Are you hurt? He asked. She shook her head, unable to speak. Good. We need to leave before more of them come. He took her hand and helped her toward the door, stepping over the fallen soldiers without looking at them. Above them, hidden in the shadows, Velzara remained frozen in place. Her recorder had captured everything, but she was not thinking about analysis or reports. She was thinking about what she had just witnessed. The human had faced 3 armed soldiers with nothing but his body and his mind. He had disabled them without killing, without weapons, without armor. He had moved with a grace and precision that she had never seen in any warrior from any species, and when it was over, when his enemies lay defeated at his feet, he had shown them mercy. It was impossible. It was beautiful. It was everything she had been taught to believe could not exist. She followed them through the corridors, keeping her distance but never losing sight of them. She watched as Do-hyun led Eunbi back to safe territory, moving calmly despite the danger, checking every corner, protecting her with his body at every step. When they reached the human ship, Captain Yoon was waiting at the airlock with medical personnel and security officers. Velzara watched the reunion from the shadows. She saw the captain embrace Eunbi. She saw Park Tae-sung grip Do-hyun's shoulder with obvious relief. She saw the young medic turn and wrap her arms around her rescuer, sobbing with gratitude. And through it all, Do-hyun remained calm, patient, humble, as if he had not just done the impossible. He looked up suddenly, and their eyes met across the crowded corridor. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Do-hyun bowed slowly. The same gesture he had shown her at their first meeting. This time, Velzara understood it was not just a greeting. It was recognition, acknowledgement, one warrior to another. She found herself bowing back, a gesture she had never made to anyone outside her own species. When she straightened, he was gone, disappeared into his ship with his people. That night, Velzara did not sleep. She lay in her quarters and stared at the ceiling and thought about everything she had seen. Her entire life she had measured warriors by their weapons and their victories. She had believed that strength came from steel and fire, from the technology that separated civilized species from primitives. But Kang Do-hyun had no weapons. He had no armor. He had nothing but his hands and his heart and his unshakable calm. And he had been magnificent. She replayed the recording again and again, watching him flow through the fight like water, like wind, like something elemental and unstoppable. She paused on the moment when he caught Yunbi and pulled her to safety, the protective instinct visible in every line of his body. "That warrior should be mine," she whispered again, and this time she understood what she meant. She did not just want to study him, she wanted to claim him. According to the ancient laws of her people, when a warrior proved themselves truly exceptional, they could be pursued as a bonding partner. It was the highest honor the Sindari could offer, and she intended to offer it. News of the incident spread through Convergence Point like fire through dry grass. By the next morning, everyone knew what had happened. A single unarmed human had walked into Recti territory and defeated 3 armed soldiers using nothing but his bare hands. The story grew with each telling. Some versions claimed he had killed a dozen enemies. Others said he had moved so fast that no one could see him. The truth was impressive enough, but rumors had their own life. The Recti were furious. They demanded justice for their assaulted soldiers, claiming that Do-hyun had violated the station's neutrality rules. Station security reviewed Velsara's recording, which she had submitted as evidence, and ruled that the human had acted in defense of a kidnapped crew member. The Recti received no sympathy. More interesting to Velsara was the reaction of her own people. Commander Rixal had watched the recording with narrowed eyes and a troubled expression. He had called Do-hyun a coward just days ago. Now that same coward had done something that no Sindari warrior could have done. He had won a fight against superior numbers and weapons without killing anyone, without suffering any injury, without even breathing hard. "It means nothing," Rixal said when Velsara asked his opinion. "A trick. Surprise. The Recti were careless. He disabled 3 armed soldiers in less than 20 seconds. Lucky? There was no luck involved, Commander. I watched him. He knew exactly what he was doing. Every movement was intentional, precise, controlled." Rixal made a dismissive sound, but Velsara saw the doubt in his eyes. His worldview had been shaken, even if he would never admit it. Good. He deserved to be shaken. She left him to his denial and went to begin her pursuit. The ancient laws of the Sindari were clear on such matters. When a warrior wished to claim another as a potential bonding partner, they must first present gifts that demonstrated their understanding of the prospect's nature. Weapons for a fighter, books for a scholar, art for a creator. The gifts spoke louder than words ever could. But what gifts would be appropriate for Do-hyun? He did not use weapons. He did not seem interested in wealth or power. He was a teacher, a protector, someone who valued peace over violence. Traditional Sindari gifts would mean nothing to him. Velsara thought about this problem for hours before she found her answer. She presented herself at the airlock of the Horizon's Edge the following day, carrying 3 items wrapped in ceremonial cloth. Captain Yoon received her with cautious politeness and granted her permission to speak with Do-hyun. She was led to the same observation deck where she had first watched him train. He was there, of course, practicing alone. He moved through a series of forms that looked like dancing, slow and graceful, each position flowing into the next without pause. Velsara watched in silence until he finished, not wanting to interrupt. When he stopped and turned to face her, she stepped forward and knelt. It was a gesture of profound respect among her people, reserved for moments of great importance. She saw surprise flash across his face before he controlled it. "Velsara," he said, "this is unexpected. I have come to honor you." She unwrapped the first gift and held it up. It was a scroll, handwritten in the Sindari language, containing the entire philosophy of their greatest warrior poet. This teaches that true strength comes from understanding oneself. I thought you might appreciate the sentiment. Do-hyun accepted the scroll with careful hands. Thank you. I will read it with respect. She unwrapped the second gift. It was a small statue carved from dark stone, depicting two figures in combat. But unlike most Sindari battle art, these figures were not trying to kill each other. They were grappling, each one using the other's force, neither one dominating. I had this commissioned, she explained. The artist thought I was strange for requesting such a design. Among my people, combat art always shows victory and defeat. This shows something else: balance, harmony. Do-hyun studied the statue for a long moment. It is beautiful, he said finally. And unusual. Like you. The third gift was the most difficult to give. It was a small pendant on a chain, marked with Velsara's family symbol. Among the Sindari, giving someone your family symbol meant that you considered them worthy of joining your bloodline. It was not quite a proposal of bonding, but it was very close. Do-hyun looked at the pendant with obvious confusion. I do not understand what this means. It means I consider you exceptional. It means I wish to know you better. It means... She hesitated, uncertain how to translate the concept into his language. It means I am interested in you, not just as a warrior to study, but as a person. I see. His voice was neutral, neither accepting nor rejecting. Velsara, I appreciate these gifts, and I accept them with gratitude. But I am not sure I understand what you expect in return. Nothing. I expect nothing. She rose to her feet. I am simply following the traditions of my people. When we see someone worthy, we pursue them. It is how bonds are formed among the Sindari. Do-hyun considered this. Among my people, relationships are formed differently. We talk. We spend time together. We learn about each other gradually. Then let us do that. She felt her heart beating faster than it should. Let us talk. Let us spend time together. I want to understand you, Do-hyun. I want to understand how you became what you are. Before he could respond, Park Tae-sung appeared in the doorway. Do-hyun, I need to speak with you, privately. Do-hyun excused himself and stepped aside with his friend. Velsara pretended not to listen, but her hearing was better than humans realized. Do you know what those gifts mean? Tae-sung whispered urgently. She said she finds me interesting. She's not just interested. She's proposing. Those symbols, that pendant. She's basically asking if you want to marry her. There was a long pause. Are you certain? I've been studying Sindari culture since we arrived. Trust me, that woman just declared her intention to claim you as a partner, in front of the entire delegation, if the rumors are true. Do-hyun was silent for a moment. When he returned to Velsara, his expression was thoughtful but not hostile. It seems I have misunderstood the significance of your gifts. You did not know our customs. I should have explained better. Perhaps. But I do not wish to insult you by refusing outright. Your traditions are different from mine, but they deserve respect. He met her eyes. May I have time to consider this properly? Relief flooded through her. He was not rejecting her. He was simply being cautious, as she should have expected from someone who chose his battles so carefully. Of course. Among my people, these things take time. I will not pressure you. She left the ship feeling lighter than she had in years. It was not acceptance, but it was not rejection either. It was possibility. That evening, Commander Rixall summoned her to his quarters. His expression was dark with anger. I have heard about your gift-giving, he said coldly. You shame the Dominion by pursuing this alien creature. I follow the ancient laws. You cannot forbid me. No, but I can make sure your pursuit fails. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. If you will not see reason, I will remove the human from consideration. Permanently. Velsara felt ice form in her chest. You would not dare. Watch me. She left his quarters, knowing that she had made a powerful enemy. But she also knew that she would not abandon Do-hyun. Whatever Rix-al planned, she would find a way to protect the warrior who had captured her heart, even if it meant standing against her own people. The observation deck had become their private sanctuary. Every evening, when their official duties were complete, Velsara came to the horizon's edge, and Do-hyun taught her the basics of martial arts. It had started as a way for them to spend time together, as human customs required, but it had quickly become something more. Your stance is wrong, Do-hyun said, circling her slowly. You are standing like someone who expects to be hit. You need to stand like someone who knows they cannot be hit. Velsara adjusted her position, trying to mimic the relaxed readiness she had seen in him. This feels strange, vulnerable. That is because you are used to armor. You trust the metal to protect you. But armor is heavy. It slows you down. It limits your movements. He gently corrected the angle of her elbow. Your body is faster than any armor. If you learn to trust it, you will be harder to hit than any metal shell could make you. She tried to believe him. It was difficult. Her entire life had been built on the principle that warriors wore armor into battle. Fighting without it felt like swimming without water. Unnatural, impossible. But she kept trying. The physical lessons were challenging, but the conversations they had during rest periods were even more transforming. Do-hyun told her about Earth's history of martial arts, how different cultures had developed different systems over thousands of years. He explained the philosophies behind the techniques, the idea that fighting was not about defeating an opponent, but about understanding oneself. In my tradition, he said one evening, we believe that the greatest victory is the battle that never happens. If you can resolve a conflict without violence, you have won more completely than any fighter who defeats 1,000 enemies. But what if violence is unavoidable? What if someone attacks you and will not stop? Then you use the minimum force necessary to end the threat. You do not seek to destroy your opponent. You seek to stop them. He paused, choosing his words carefully. When I fought the Rektai soldiers, I did not want to hurt them. They were doing what they thought was right, following orders, protecting their people's interests. They were not evil. They were simply on the other side of a conflict. You showed them mercy. I showed them humanity. He smiled at his own word choice, or whatever the equivalent would be in a galaxy full of different species. Compassion, perhaps. The recognition that even enemies are people, with lives and families and dreams. If you can remember that even in the middle of a fight, you become something more than just a warrior. Velsara absorbed this slowly. It was so different from everything she had been taught. Among the Sindari, enemies were obstacles to be destroyed. Mercy was weakness. Compassion was a luxury that warriors could not afford. But Do-hyun was not weak. She had seen him fight. He was one of the most dangerous beings she had ever encountered. And yet he chose mercy. He chose compassion. He chose to see enemies as people rather than targets. It was confusing. It was beautiful. It was changing her. Their training sessions grew longer. Their conversations grew deeper. Velsara found herself sharing things she had never told anyone, secrets about her childhood, her fears, her dreams of a life beyond warfare. Do-hyun listened without judgment, asked questions that showed genuine interest, shared his own stories in return. She learned that he had once been a soldier, trained for violence, skilled at killing, but he had left that life behind when he realized it was destroying him from the inside. He had become a teacher instead, dedicating himself to passing on the philosophy behind the fighting rather than the fighting itself. I still know how to kill, he admitted one night. I could end a life as easily as taking a breath. But I choose not to. That choice is what makes me human. That choice is what makes life worth living. You believe choice defines us more than ability? I believe choice is all we truly control. We cannot choose our abilities. We cannot choose the circumstances we are born into. But we can choose how we respond to those things. That is freedom. That is power. Their lessons became meals. Their meals became long walks through the station. Their walks became quiet moments of simply existing together, two people from different worlds finding common ground in shared values. Then Commander Rixal made his move. Velsara was summoned to the Sindari delegation's quarters for an emergency meeting. When she arrived, she found Rixal smiling with cold satisfaction. "I have solved your little problem," he said. "The human will be dealt with appropriately." "What have you done?" "I have arranged a formal challenge in the station's combat arena. Champion Torvek has agreed to face your human in single combat." Rixal's smile widened. Under station law, refusing a formal challenge from a ranked warrior means exile from Convergence Point. The humans would lose their diplomatic foothold entirely. This is murder disguised as honor. It is tradition. The challenge has already been registered. The human must accept or leave. Rixal leaned forward. "Torvek will be fully armed and armored. Your human will be permitted only his traditional weapons." He laughed. "His hands and feet, it will be over in seconds." Velsara felt rage building inside her, a fury unlike anything she had ever experienced. This was not honor. This was assassination. Rixal was using their sacred traditions to destroy someone simply because he threatened the commander's view of the world. "I will speak against this," she said through clenched teeth. "I will tell everyone what you are doing. And who will believe you? You are compromised by your feelings for the human. Everyone knows you have been pursuing him. Your judgment cannot be trusted." Rixal waved a hand dismissively. "Go. Watch your warrior die. Perhaps it will teach you to choose more appropriate prospects in the future." She left his quarters with murder in her heart. For the first time in her life, she understood why Do Hyun's philosophy valued controlling one's violence. She wanted to kill Rixal. She wanted to tear him apart with her bare hands. The rage was overwhelming, but she controlled it. She went to Do Hyun instead and told him everything. He listened calmly, as he always did. When she finished, he was silent for a long moment. "Torvek is one of your best fighters?" he asked. "The best. He has never been defeated. And I cannot refuse without harming my people's interests?" "No, the challenge is legally binding. If you refuse, the humans lose their position here." Do Hyun nodded slowly. "Then I will accept." "You cannot." Velsara grabbed his arm, desperate. "He will kill you. This is not a test of skill. It is an execution." "Perhaps." He covered her hand with his own. "Or perhaps it is an opportunity." "An opportunity for what?" "To show everyone what unarmed fury truly means." He smiled, and despite everything, there was no fear in his eyes. "I have been hiding, Velsara, holding back, showing only the gentle parts of my training. But there is another side to martial arts, a darker side, the side that made humans feared throughout our history, even when we faced enemies with better weapons, better armor, better everything." He gently removed her hand and stepped back. "Tomorrow, the galaxy will see what humans can do when we stop holding back." Velsara wanted to argue. She wanted to beg him to find another way. But she saw the resolution in his face, the absolute certainty, and she understood that this was who he was, a warrior who chose his battles carefully and fought them completely. All she could do was stand beside him and hope it was enough. The arena at Convergence Point was built for spectacle. It was a massive circular chamber with transparent walls that let spectators watch from every angle. Thousands of beings could fit in the viewing galleries, and today every seat was filled. Word had spread throughout the station. A human would fight a Sindari champion, unarmed against fully equipped, and everyone wanted to see what would happen. Most expected a quick execution. Some hoped for a miracle. All wanted to witness history. Du Hyun stood in the center of the arena, wearing simple training clothes. No armor, no weapons, just cloth and skin and calm, steady breathing. He had meditated all morning, preparing his mind and body for what was coming. He knew this fight would be different from any he had faced before. Torvek was not a careless rek'Tai soldier. He was a trained killer at the peak of his abilities. Across the arena, the Sindari champion entered to thunderous applause from his people. Torvek was enormous, nearly 8 feet tall, covered head to toe in ceremonial combat armor that gleamed with protective energy fields. He carried a blade in each hand, curved weapons designed to cut through anything they touched. His eyes glowed with predatory anticipation. "Human," he called out, his voice amplified by the arena's systems. "I offer you one chance to yield. Surrender now, and I will make your death quick." Du Hyun bowed politely. "Thank you for the offer, but I did not come here to die." The crowd laughed. What else could a defenseless creature say? In the viewing gallery, Velsara stood with Captain Yoon and Park Tae-sung. Her hands were clenched so tightly that her nails drew blood from her palms. The human captain looked equally tense, while Tae-sung had the expression of someone watching a friend walk into a fire. "He can do this," Yoon said quietly. "I have seen him do impossible things before." "So have I," Velsara replied. "But this is different. Torvek has never lost." The arena's announcer declared the rules. Standard honor combat. The fight would continue until one opponent was unable to continue or yielded. Killing was permitted but not required. Medical teams stood ready at the edges. Then the signal sounded, and Torvek charged. He was fast for his size, closing the distance in seconds, both blades sweeping in deadly arcs that would have cut Do Hyun in half. But Do Hyun was not there anymore. He had moved the instant Torvek's weight shifted, circling to the side, avoiding the attack by centimeters rather than meters. The champion adjusted instantly, spinning with a backhand slash that should have been impossible to dodge. Du Hyun dropped under it, letting the blade pass over his head, then rolled to his feet and danced away again. The crowd murmured with surprise. The human was supposed to be dead by now. Instead, he was untouched. Torvek pressed his attack, using combinations that had killed dozens of opponents. Overhead strikes, sweeping cuts, thrusting stabs. Each one was perfectly executed, perfectly timed, perfectly lethal, and each one missed. Du Hyun flowed around the attacks like smoke in wind. He did not block, he did not deflect. He simply was not where the weapons wanted to cut. It was as if he could see the future, as if he knew exactly where each strike would land before it happened. "How is he doing that?" someone in the crowd whispered. Velsara knew the answer. She had watched him train for weeks. She had learned the beginnings of his art. Do Hyun was reading Torvek's body, watching the subtle shifts in weight and muscle that telegraphed each attack. He was not reacting to the blades, he was reacting to the intentions behind them. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. But it could not last forever. Torvek was learning too, adapting his patterns, making his movements harder to predict. One blade finally grazed Do Hyun's arm, drawing blood. The crowd cheered. Do Hyun did not even flinch. He used the momentum of his dodge to close distance, stepping inside Torvek's guard where the long blades could not reach. His palm struck the champion's armored chest, not hard enough to damage, but hard enough to push. Torvek stumbled back, surprised by the audacity of the move. "You cannot hurt me through this armor," Torvek said. "I do not need to hurt you," Do Hyun replied. "I only need to stop you." The fight resumed. This time, Do Hyun did not just avoid. He began to attack. His strikes were not aimed at Torvek's protected torso or head. They targeted the gaps in his armor, the joints where metal met metal, the places where energy fields were weakest. Fingers struck nerve clusters, palms hit pressure points, feet swept at ankles and knees. Individually, the attacks did little damage, but they accumulated. Torvek's movements became slower, less precise. His left arm began to shake. His right knee wobbled when he stepped. The crowd fell silent. They were watching something impossible. An unarmed human was systematically dismantling one of the greatest warriors the Sindari had ever produced. Velsara felt tears streaming down her face. She did not know if they were tears of fear or hope, or something else entirely. All she knew was that she had never loved anyone as much as she loved the man in that arena. The end came suddenly. Torvek launched a desperate overhead strike with both blades, putting every ounce of his remaining strength into one final attack. Do-hyun stepped forward instead of back, closing to contact range. His hands caught Torvek's arms at the wrists. He pivoted, pulling and turning, using the champion's own momentum against him. Torvek flew through the air and crashed to the ground with a sound like thunder. Before he could rise, Do-hyun was on top of him, one knee pressing on his throat, both hands controlling his arms. "Yield," Do-hyun said quietly. Torvek struggled for a moment, but his body would not obey him. The accumulated damage to his nervous system had stolen his strength. He was helpless, immobilized, utterly defeated. "Yield," Do-hyun repeated. "Please, I do not want to hurt you further." The arena was silent. No one breathed, no one moved. Then Torvek's hands opened, releasing his blades. "I yield," he said. The crowd erupted. Some cheered. Some screamed in disbelief. Some simply stared in shock. A human had defeated the greatest Sindari warrior in living memory, using nothing but his bare hands. Do-hyun stood and offered Torvek his hand. The champion stared at it for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached up and took it. Do-hyun pulled him to his feet. "You fought with honor," Do-hyun said. "I am grateful for the lesson." Torvek looked at him with new eyes. "I have never faced anyone like you. Your people are more than I understood." In the viewing gallery, Commander Rixal stood frozen with fury. His plan had failed completely. Instead of eliminating the human and discrediting Velsara, he had made Do-hyun a legend. Velsara did not give him time to recover. She left the gallery and walked into the arena, her steps quick and certain. The crowd watched as she approached Do-hyun and stopped before him. "I invoke the ancient right," she said, her voice carrying through the arena's amplification systems. "Before all witnesses, I declare this warrior worthy of bonding. I offer myself as his partner, in accordance with the laws of my ancestors." The crowd gasped. A highborn Sindari offering herself to an alien was unprecedented. "And if my people reject this choice," she continued, looking directly at Rixal, "I will leave the Dominion and make my own way in the galaxy. Beside him." Do-hyun looked at her with gentle understanding. Over the past weeks, he had learned enough of her culture to know what she was sacrificing. Her position, her family, her entire future. "You honor me," he said, "but I will not ask you to give up everything for me." "You are not asking. I am choosing." She reached out and took his hand. "Teach me your ways, and I will teach you mine. We will build something new together, something that belongs to neither of our peoples, but to both." He was silent for a long moment. Then he smiled, and it was like watching the sun rise. "Among my people," he said, "we believe that the best relationships are built on mutual respect and shared growth. I accept your offer, Velsara, not because you pursued me or because your traditions demand it, but because I have come to care for you as a person, a warrior, and a friend." She stepped forward and embraced him. The crowd roared with a mixture of approval and outrage and astonishment. History was being made in front of their eyes. Later, as they stood together at a viewport watching the stars, Velsara asked him to teach her more about human ways. "Only if you teach me about yours," he replied. "It will take a lifetime." He put his arm around her and smiled. "Then we had better get started." Outside the viewport, the galaxy spun onward, vast and ancient and full of wonders. But the greatest wonder of all was the simple truth that two people from different worlds had found each other, recognized each other's worth, and chosen to walk forward together. That was the real victory. That was what it meant to be human. That was what it meant to be alive.